think we got a quorum here. All right, so we're going to pick up with the rest of this shell book. And yesterday we covered the negotiation foundations. Now we're going to go through his actual negotiation process. So preparation. Assess the situation. Determine which quadrant the chaotic matrix your negotiation falls into. Is it strategic negotiation? Is it leverage? What is it? Step 2, matching situation, strategy, and style. So once you determine where you're at here, then you want to determine the most effective strategy based on whether you're dealing with a strategic or a leverage or a bottleneck supplier. Cooperative styles work best with strategic or bottleneck situations. So when you have only a few people in the market, you're going to have to work with one of them. When you're in a leverage or a tactical situation where you got a bunch of folks in the market, you can pick and choose. And that's where competitive styles come in. So I'm naturally got a competitive style. I work best in a leverage situation. And tires was like a good place for that. But you have to be able to switch. So I also had radiators for a while, and there's only 3 or 4 radiator suppliers that can supply radiators. So you can't really use the same style that you would use. And it's especially true if you're dealing with the Cummins or an Eaton or somebody like that, where there's only one. So a strategic situation calls for both cooperative and competitive traits along with some collaboration. It's more cooperative than it is competitive, and more collaboration than either of the other two. And then step 3 in preparation is examining the situation from the other party's point of view. Concentrate on the other side's perceived point of view. And a lot of people don't do this. But what does the other side want? Why are they coming to the table at all? Try and think about, if you were them, what would you want out of it? Preparation step 4, decide how to communicate. Should you use an agent or third party? We never do that. Person to person is what we do. Telephone. I prefer to do in person, but do a lot on telephone. And negotiating on email is too weird. I'm not sure that would work. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail. This is John Wooden, who probably most of you don't know, but he was the UCLA basketball coach in the 60s and 70s, and he won a lot of games. All right. So exchanging information. So after we prepare, we're going to exchange information. And you need to establish rapport. Information exchange depends on effective interpersonal communication. So rapport is a relationship characterized by agreement, mutual understanding, and empathy. That makes communication possible or easy. And kind of probably underline the word empathy. We prefer to say yes to the request of someone we know and like, which is why the sales guy always wants to be your friend. Establishing rapport should not gain a significant bargaining advantage for either side. So going out to dinner and all this other kind of stuff that suppliers want to do is fine, but it's not going to change my approach when I come into the negotiating table. And the reason they want to do that is, again, they want to establish rapport and be your friend, which makes it harder for you to say no. So second purpose, obtaining information, issues, and perceptions. So information exchange allows you to test your hypothesis about the other party's needs and communicate your own interests. So ask questions of the other party and listen to their answers. So it's not, negotiation isn't a one-way communication. It's not, this is what I want. You have, again, you do most of the listening. Don't do the talking. Try and figure out what is it they're after and they need. Probe first, disclose later. So skilled negotiators focus on receiving, not delivering information. So ask questions designed to elicit useful information. When can you make delivery? That kind of thing. Test your understanding of what the other side said. And this comes back to mirroring. Do you mean 10 calendar days or 10 business days? Summarize where you think you are in the process. And this is kind of labeling, but you know, it's showing you're listening to them. As I understand it, we have agreed to pay in 30 days and you'll deliver in 7. You know, you're mirroring and restating what you just heard. Strategic nature of information exchange. Other parties will be probing you and trying to figure out what your interests are. Yes and no, depends on how good they are. The one who gives up too much information first loses leverage. This is always true. This is why you don't want to talk as much. The third purpose in exchanging information is signaling expectations. So if you have weak leverage, you're dealing with a sole supplier or something like that, play up the uncertainty of the future and how the other side can minimize risk by closing the deal now. This is what sales guys try to do. Candidly acknowledge the other side's power and proceed on that basis. Not that you're going to really act on it, but you can tell them that. And bluff, act in ways that indicate strong leverage. Unfortunately, this is a very risky and it tends to backfire. I've used it once or twice in my 30-year career in purchasing, but I was very certain that it would work. And the one time I can remember using it in a tire manufacturer, I had the sales guy helping me because he wanted the same thing I wanted, but his management didn't want it. So if you're going to bluff, it's almost got to be a sure thing. Otherwise, it tends to get ugly. If you have strong leverage, send a firm signal that you have the power to make a favorable deal and tend to insist on one. I did this a lot with tire and wheel manufacturers. Show your power that indicate you intend to be flexible, build goodwill. So don't come down and hammer them all the time. You know, it's like let them know that you're in charge and you're going to have to meet your needs, but try to listen to what it is they need out of the situation too. So exchanging information checklist, establish rapport, obtain information, the other party's interests, issues, and perceptions. And remember, in negotiation, perceptions are what matter. Probe first, then disclose, then signal your leverage. So step 3 is opening and making concessions. Question 1, should you be the first to open? In other words, should you anchor? Depends on how much information you have on the other party. Are you confident? If you know their bargaining range and they're going to come in high, anchor. You got nothing to lose. By naming the first price, you have the chance to set the anchor for the negotiation. Like I say, it's just human nature. Whoever throws out the first price, the negotiation starts from there. People unconsciously adjust their expectations in the direction of the anchor. As long as the anchor is realistic. If you throw out something that's unrealistic, it's not going to happen. Question 2, should I open optimistically or reasonably? So as a buyer, should I open with a really, really low price or somewhere around my target price? So open optimistically when the lowest price for which there is a support for, open optimistically. Open with the lowest price for which there is a supporting argument. If you've done your cost analysis, you have an idea of what the part should cost, open with that price. Concede slowly. Contrast principle. Opening low and settling higher gives the selling party a sense of relief and accomplishment. So wherever you open, assume that that is not where you're going to settle, even if you have all the leverage in the situation. Norm of reciprocity. If you make concessions, the other party feels obligated to do so in return. It's like sending out Christmas cards. If you get one, you feel obligated to send one back. Question 3, what sort of concession tactics work best? So same as leverage, but you can be more aggressive. So this is when you're dealing with the tactical category in the credit matrix, since you can easily switch suppliers and it's small dollars. pretty much open to any negotiation tactic you're comfortable using. Of course, you don't want to get in an industry reputation for being untrustworthy or a pain in the neck. But the tactical category, this is fasteners and shop supplies and stuff like that. You can use pretty much any tactic, and you'll see a lot of tactics used when you're negotiating that kind of stuff. Leverage category, you want to open optimistically. Why? Because you have the power. Hold for a bit, then make a series of progressively smaller concessions as you close in on your expected price. This is called haggling. Some people fear that, but it's not that bad. If I was going to train buyers, I'd take them out and teach them how to buy used cars. Use smaller concessions to signal that you're getting closer to a resistance line. That's why you move a good distance initially, and then as you keep haggling, you tighten that up. This is the bluff. Your target price is not the same as your bottom line. And you know what your bottom line is, but you don't keep that in your mind. You keep the target price in your mind because that's what you're trying to get to. So the bottleneck category, accommodation or elimination. This is one where I go to the engineers and I tell them, get this guy off of the truck. I don't like him. And they say, we can't. He's the only one that makes it. And then I got to go figure out how I'm going to get supply from him at a reasonable price. And the strategic category is the balance of concerns. Integrative bargaining you can use in this strategic category. So you move slowly and test your important issues first in the if-then format. You want to stay away from aggressive hardball moves and transparent gambits. I mean, most of the people from these large companies are not fools. And probe for real needs, underlying the issues, and seek imaginative solutions. You're trying to collaborate with these guys, help them help you. And concession devaluation. What we obtain too cheaply, we esteem too lightly. So don't give concessions too early or too quickly. And then there's something called distributive bargaining, which is haggling over every small issue. Can create an impasse. Not all issues are valued the same by both parties. That's distributive bargaining, and you might use that in the tactical category. Integrated bargaining is certainly what you want to use with strategic suppliers, packaging issues together and bargain over the package. That's just what they're calling the if-then format. Identify the issues that are most important to each side, then accommodate each other's most important interests in exchange for reciprocal accommodations. If you give me this, I'll give you that. If you yield on issues A and B, I can give you X on issues C and D. That's called integrative bargaining. All right, here's your chart and your 4 Kralik matrix categories. Should I open, how to open, concession strategy, etc. And then the final step in the negotiating process is the closing factor. Well, this is closing factor 1. Injecting urgency by using a scarcity effect. This is what the sales guys are masters at. Impose the act now to avoid feeling regret later. It's called the panic button. Caused by demand, I need supply now, others can meet my timetable. And caused by time or lack thereof, take it or leave it ultimatums or walkouts. These are all closing gambits. They're tactics. So have one or two that you like for closing. Doesn't necessarily need to be any of those. Go look through the Packard's negotiation tactics encyclopedia. Closing factor 2, overcommitment to the bargaining process. So human desire to avoid admitting failure when they have invested heavily in a prior course of action. So you've been tasked by your boss to finish this negotiation, and you have a big desire to actually get it done and not punt on it. So string negotiations out if time is on your side, and time is almost always on the buyer's side. To get to the other side to overcommit. So here's a couple of tactics. Quivering quill. apologetically introduce the last minute demand just before closing. So you've got the quill, which is what you sign with, and you're ready to sign, but oh, one small little matter. And then nibbling, request small favors just before closing, antidote, hold something back to trade at the close, insist on a reciprocal concession. So these are all tactics. Here's some softer closing tactics. Splitting the difference. I've used this one a lot. Ensure that the midpoint is generally fair. May leave opportunities for additional creative options. Obtain a neutral valuation on the issue. Split the difference between two neutral advisors. We don't usually use this approach, but the post-settlement settlement is around. Close the deal and agree that if an idea is found later that makes one or both sides better off, but does not make either side worse off, you'll implement it. That's called the post-settlement settlement tactics. So I think, yeah, that's it. Go through some of these plans here. So these two are the bargaining plan. One's empty and one's filled out with a fictitious company, but it's based on a negotiation that I actually did. And I think what I want to do is not go here. I want to go over to the actual Word doc because they just show up funny here. Negotiation plan. Can't remember what I called it. Well, we'll look at it through here. Oh, bargaining plan. That's right. Bargaining plan. Information-based bargaining plan. All right, so you got the generic one. This is based on a negotiation that I actually did, and this is the write-up, but I've changed the names to protect the innocent. So AFAB and What's Up are competitors. They're suppliers. Acme is PACCAR, it's the customer. So, here's your problem statement. And then this is goals and decision makers. What are your most desirable outcomes and your least acceptable alternatives? You gotta align those, write those down so you know what they are. Who's actually going to sign the paperwork on the other side, and who can influence that decision? Here's PACCAR's underlying needs and interests, and here's the suppliers. And then here's what the spend analysis told me. Now, leverage. What do I lose if there is no deal? This is what does PACCAR lose? What steps or alternatives will reduce the losses? And then if no deal, what does the supplier lose? And can I influence their alternatives? And then does leverage favor me or the other party? And then I kind of put an explanation statement down there. So here's a possible proposal, and this is how I would brief my boss and how I briefed them with what I was doing and what my plan was for the negotiation. And then here I'm practicing my arguments and my counter arguments. So here's where I'm throwing out, this is what they're going to say, and this is what I think I'm going to come back with. Here, where there's nothing over here, this is me thinking this is one of their objections, one of the supplier's objections, and this is what my response is going to be. And you're not going to remember these things verbatim, but writing them down helps you commit them to memory, and you recognize them and you can call them off much quicker. And this is the kind of thing where you start out with maybe this many, And then as you go through the negotiation, thing comes up and you write them down because they'll come up again. Third parties, you know, here's the Kralik matrix. Situation is, you know, what box are we in? There's tactics that I've decided to use. And this is the phase. There's the tactic. There's the expected results. How I'm going to plan on talking to them. And then this is kind of a summary. So when I'm talking to my boss, I will first show them this. Possible proposals. If they like that, then I show them the overall theme. Or I could show them this one first and then come up with the proposal. But those are really the only two boxes my boss is going to be interested in. But if you'll use these forms and write these out, it'll help you immensely in your negotiations. And you don't want to do it for every negotiation you do. You want to do it for the important ones. What else do we want to cover here? The encyclopedia we have covered. Let me see if I've got this assessment. I think it's up here. Yeah, we'll look at it from here. So, like the label. So this, I can't remember where I got this. I think it came from Seattle University. But it's an assessment. How did you do? This is you rating yourself after the negotiation is over. You know, you got 1 to 5 in your Likert scale, needs improvement on 1 and excellent on 5. And you just kind of go through there and think back on it. You don't have to show this to anybody, but it does help you kind of think about what your strengths and weaknesses were in negotiation. Oh, I guess this is from the book also. So, you know, I've done this a few times. It does help to kind of work through something like this. No, I guess this is, I'm sorry, this is from T. Noble Foster at Seattle University. So he gave this to me and I kind of converted it up for you. But those are handy things to do. And I think with that, yeah, the encyclopedia is good. Again, you want to look at it and then go through it and pick out 1 or 2 different, well, we want about a half a dozen. You want them for each phase of the negotiation, the open, the middle, and the end, the close. You know, you can look through these and just get like a half a dozen of them that you're comfortable with and keep those in your back pocket. All right, any questions? If not, that is what I got for you guys. I'll post some of this stuff in the chat so you have it. All right, so tomorrow we're going to questions for negotiation, and Monday we'll start on some legal stuff. All right, see you guys.
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah.